The story begins with a man driving his car to go somewhere. This man is named Victor, and he is a professional hitman. It is revealed that Victor is the most elite hitman who only wants to work for big bosses at costly rates. Victor's goal now is to go to the biggest mafia boss in Mexico because the mafia boss will give Victor a job. Arriving there, the biggest Mexican mafia boss, Javier, was seen. Javier wants Victor to eliminate his business rival within 1 week, and Javier will pay Victor $1 million.
Es una oferta muy generosa.
Hearing this, Victor refused because usually, once Victor had worked, the pay would have reached $3 million. Victor also said that the person targeted by Javier had now contacted him and was ready to pay double for Javier's head. However, because of his professionalism, Victor refused the target's offer because Javier had contacted Victor first. Then, Victor told Javier to tell his men in the back to immediately lower their weapons because it was very disrespectful. However, because they did not want to listen, Victor immediately killed the guard. Javier, who didn't want any trouble at his base, didn't seem to mind. Then, Javier agreed to pay Victor $3 million as long as Victor could eliminate his target in 3 days. However, Victor suddenly raised his rate to $3.5 million because Javier's men had been rude. In the end, they mutually agreed, and Victor quickly left Javier's headquarters.
Mi precio acaba de subir. 3,5.
Pero solo si lo haces en menos de una semana.
Sabrás de mí cuando el trabajo esté hecho.
At the same time, several women were locked up in Javier's room. As it turns out, the women are Javier's kidnapped victims who will later be sold to perverted men. We are told that apart from being a mafia boss, Javier is also in the business of selling women. Here, one of Javier's kidnapped women, Sarai, tries to escape from there by taking advantage of Victor's presence.
¿Qué haces? Recoge tus cosas, nos vamos de aquí. Ese hombre es nuestra única salida. Javier nos va a matar a las dos. No será ahí. Yo no puedo irme. Voy a regresar por ti. Te lo prometo. Maneja.
When Victor is about to leave, he is suddenly held at gunpoint by Sarai, who has infiltrated his car. Sarai asked Victor to take her out of the base right now. On the way, Victor asked why Sarai wanted to leave Javier's base. Sarai replied that she had been kidnapped by Javier when she was 15 years old. From then until now, Sarai has always been used as a slave to fulfill Javier's lust. Sarai also explained that after Victor finished off his target, Javier would never pay Victor. In fact, Javier had planned to kill Victor after Victor successfully completed the mission. Then, on one occasion, when Sarai was off guard, Victor beat Sarai until she fainted.
Necesito que me ayudes.
At the same time, Javier's younger sister, Isel, tries to find Sarai by asking one of the slaves there. However, not finding Sarai, Isel finally realized that Sarai must have run away with Victor's car. When Sarai woke up the next morning, she was bound in the motel bathroom. Victor came in and immediately untied Sarai's legs. Here, Victor ordered Sarai to stay in the bathroom and not try to get out. It turns out that Isel and Javier's men are already in the front room, wanting Sarai back. Here, Victor asks Isel to sit and talk nicely to make it look more polite. Victor also tells Javier's men not to pull out their weapons because that would challenge him. However, Isel replies that she's not here to chat but to bring Sarai back to her base. Before Isel sat down, Victor didn't want to say anything until Isel finally sat down. However, after Isel sat down, Victor suddenly killed all of Javier's men because he was very annoyed with Javier's men who kept carrying weapons. After that, Victor said that if Javier really wanted to hire his services, there was no way he would have sent armed men to approach him. Victor also said that from now on, his contract with Javier was officially cancelled. Hearing this, Isel tries to convince Victor that they did not come here to hunt him down but only to bring Sarai. However, if Victor didn't want to return Sarai, then it meant that Victor had dealt with Mexico's ruling monster. Isel also said that if Victor wanted 10 women, Javier would give them to him, but not Sarai because Sarai was Javier's favorite slave. Hearing Isel's ramblings, Victor shot Isel in the leg for being disrespectful.
Lo único que vas a hacer es que vas a despertar al monstruo.
Then, Victor told Isel to go home before he finished off her.
Sarai, salte al baño. Ven aquí. Párala.
Cuidado.
Vámonos.
¡Regresa, hijo de puta! ¡Están muertos!
The next day, Isel, already at Javier's headquarters, was upset with Victor's brutal treatment. They eventually planned to provoke Sarai and Victor by torturing one of Sarai's close friends, who is also their slave. On the other hand, Sarai and Victor are seen having lunch at a shop. Here, a curious Victor asks why Javier wants Sarai so much. Sarai explains that Javier is obsessed with her because of Sarai's beautiful face. Shortly after, Sarai asks permission to go to the toilet because she needs to pee. Not long after, two thugs who had just exited a car approached the restaurant. A few minutes later, Sarai, still in the toilet, suddenly heard a gunshot. When checked, it turned out that the gunshot came from Victor, who had just finished off the two thugs because he knew they were about to arrest Sarai. Victor, who felt bad for the shop owner, immediately gave his sports car as compensation for being rude in the shop.
¿Quieres un coche nuevo?
Later that night, Victor and Sarai stay at Victor's luxury villa. Then, when Victor opened his laptop, he received a video from Javier. When the video is opened, it shows Javier torturing one of his slaves, who is Sarai's best friend. Initially, Victor did not want to show the video to Sarai, but Sarai insisted until she saw it. When she saw the video, Sarai immediately felt very guilty. In the video, Javier said that her friend would continue to be tortured if Sarai did not return. Finally, Sarai begged Victor to return her to Javier before her best friend was tortured to death. A few hours later, Javier contacted Victor to make a deal. In the agreement, Victor asked to exchange Sarai for two slaves, one of whom was Sarai's best friend. Hearing this, Javier agreed. The next day, before Victor exchanged with Javier, Victor invited Sarai to meet his best friend, Nicholas. Nicholas is a hitman, just like Victor. Victor and Nicholas usually go on missions together. Here, Victor asks Nicholas for help to come with him to meet Javier. Long story short, they finally met Javier's group at an agreed place. However, Javier did not want to attend and only assigned Isel, his younger sister, to carry out the exchange. Victor said that Javier was rude for not attending the exchange. Later, when Sarai is about to be exchanged for two women who are Javier's slaves, suddenly Victor is not willing to give Sarai to Javier's group. After killing them all, it turned out that Isel was still alive and managed to shoot Sarai's best friend before Isel was also finished off by Victor.
Todo va a estar bien.
Then, they left the place. On the way, Victor told Nicholas to deliver one of Sarai's surviving friends to her parents. At the same time, Sarai would go with Victor to Romania to avoid Javier's group. Meanwhile, Javier is vengeful towards Sarai and Victor because, due to their actions, Isel dies badly. Javier vowed to continue targeting Victor and Sarai wherever they went. The next day, it shows Sarai and Victor, who have arrived in Romania. A woman immediately welcomed them and then took them to the woman's house. It is known that this woman is named Samantha, and Samantha is one of Victor and Nicholas' good friends. Then, Victor gave Sarai a gun just in case and told Sarai to stay with Samantha for a while. Meanwhile, Victor himself will apparently go back to Mexico the next day to completely slaughter Javier's group because Javier will definitely target them and take revenge for the death of his sister. The next day, we see Sarai and Samantha relaxing in the house. Meanwhile, Victor is at the airport preparing to fly to Mexico. However, when Victor arrives at the airport, he gets a call from his informant that Javier's group is already in Romania, which makes Victor cancel his departure. Back to Sarai, who ventured to ask Samantha about Victor and Nicholas' lives. Samantha then tells the story of Victor and Nicholas, orphans raised by a priest since childhood. However, the priest who raised them was the head of a hitman organization. So it's no wonder that when Victor and Nicholas grew up, they became great hitmen most feared by other hitmen. While Samantha was telling her story, there was a knock on her door. Sensing a threat, Samantha immediately tells Sarai to hide in a special room. As it turns out, it was Javier's men who approached them and shot Samantha in the shoulder. Javier immediately ordered his men to find Sarai while he interrogated Samantha. Samantha lied here, saying Sarai had left with Victor earlier that morning. However, since Javier didn't believe her, he didn't hesitate to shoot her again.
Casa.
Te dije que no hay nadie aquí.
Meanwhile, Sarai, who sees from the CCTV that Samantha continues to be tortured by Javier, becomes confused between turning herself in or staying in the special room. It wasn't long before Javier shot Samantha again, which made Sarai decide to come out and turn herself in. At the same time, Victor, who did not leave and has returned, immediately finishes Javier's men one by one until nothing is left.
Samantha, ¿estás bien?
Ven aquí, ven aquí. Déjame verte.
Siempre seré tuya.
Ya llegó tu novio. Así es.
Just as Victor was about to go inside, a gunshot was heard. As it turned out, Sarai had just finished Javier off with a gun that Victor had previously given her. Meanwhile, Samantha had apparently died while being interrogated by Javier. After that, Victor and Sarai went to a church to meet Nicholas, who was told that this was the place where Nicholas and Victor were raised by a priest. Then, Victor told him that 6 months ago, the priest had asked Victor to kill Nicholas because Nicholas was considered disobedient to his orders. Because of this, Victor was forced to kill the priest, who he already considered his own father, because Victor cared more about Nicholas. However, for now, Victor will kill Nicholas because he thinks Nicholas has conspired with Javier. No one knew where Samantha's house was except him and Nicholas. Hearing this, Nicholas denied that he had ever betrayed Victor. However, if Victor didn't believe him, he was willing to let Victor finish him off now.
Haz mi juras.
¿Qué dices? Te lo juro por mi vida, soy tu hermano. Si debes eliminarme, hazlo. Mátame. No pienso rogar por mi vida. Sabré que yo nunca te traicioné. Pero, ¿por qué confías en ella? Si ella fue la que empezó todo. Ella fue la que trajo a Javier.
Several times, Nicholas told Victor to just shoot him, but apparently, Victor wasn't brave enough to finish him off. Then, Victor approached Sarai to examine her entire body. Finally, Victor found a chip planted at the nape of Sarai's neck. After that, Victor returned to Nicholas while apologizing for previously accusing him. Later that night, at a villa, Victor told Sarai he would give her everything she needed, including a new identity, money, and life. Victor also advised Sarai to go home to her parents. However, Sarai explained that she had no one left. Now, she wanted to live with Victor, even if it meant becoming a contract killer. Because of this, Victor finally allows Sarai to stay with him and trains her to become a hitman.
Que mates a alguien porque es parte de una misión no lo harías. No podrías asesinar a alguien sin saber por qué razón lo haces.
A few months later, they were shown on a mission. By now, Sarai has officially become an assassin. While on the plane, Victor explains they will meet a Dubai mafia boss named Arthur. Arthur is a Dubai nobleman who owns an adult filmmaking business in various countries. When they get there, Victor and Sarai disguise themselves as one of the guests at a party organized by Arthur. Arthur, who was looking at his guests, seemed to notice them. Arthur is willing to pay the guests handsomely if he likes the guest style of play. Soon, Victor and Sarai were also playing. Arthur, who saw their good looks and beauty, immediately told them to play with him in a private room. Before entering the private room, Victor and Sarai were first checked by Arthur's men. Then, Arthur told Victor and Sarai to play well. After that, he would taste Sarai's body too. Hearing this, Victor could only accept Arthur's request. However, before the main event began, Arthur went into a special room to get a drink. That's when Victor also entered and paralyzed Arthur. Here, Victor told Sarai to read the envelope in the drawer. The envelope's contents apparently explained that Arthur's wife, who had been ill for a long time, still, Arthur prevented her and kept her in a particular room. It was discovered that the person who had hired Victor and Sarai was Arthur's wife. However, they were hired not to kill Arthur but to kill his wife in front of Arthur's eyes.
Acabando con todo. Adiós, Arthur. Tu esposa, Mary.
Arthur was also told that inside the letter was a memory containing evidence of Arthur's crime of producing various adult films. So, if Arthur did not want to go to jail, he had to stop his business immediately. Long story short, Victor and Sarai are now in Spain. For months, they have both enjoyed an increasingly close relationship. That morning, Victor received news from Nicholas, his best friend, that someone wanted to meet him. At first, Victor wanted to take Sarai to meet the client, but seeing Sarai was fast asleep, Victor decided to go alone to meet his client. But not long after Victor left, a sudden knock on the house door forced Sarai to wake up and open it, and it turned out to be Nicholas. Sarai was very confused as to why Nicholas was pointing a gun at her. Nicholas explained that he felt isolated by Victor since Sarai's arrival. Therefore, Nicholas plans to finish Sarai off right now. However, luckily, Victor came back because he had left his mobile phone behind, and there was a fight between the two of them. In the middle of the fight, Victor managed to paralyze Nicholas and intended to finish him off. However, Sarai suddenly forbade it because, after all, they were both brothers. In the end, Victor lets Nicholas live and intends to take Sarai away from the place. However, at that moment, Sarai was hit by a bullet shot when Victor and Nicholas dueled. Quickly, Victor decided to take Sarai to the hospital immediately. Five days later, Sarai finally regained consciousness, and Victor said that from now on, Sarai should start her own life. Living with Victor would only endanger Sarai, even though Victor was actually in love with her. However, he had to do this for Sarai's safety. As a result, the two of them were separated from then on. 2 years later, it shows Sarai, a professional hitman. At that time, Sarai had a mission to kill someone, but without Sarai realizing, apparently, there was also Victor, and they happened to be given the same mission by the client who hired his services. And the movie is over. If you enjoyed this video, don't be shy, hit the like button, and if you disliked it, hit the dislike button twice just to be sure. You should watch the full movie. Thank you very much for watching.